Hello, and welcome to the She Hit Refresh YouTube channel, where I share information on how you can move abroad or travel the world long term. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of living in Spain as an American. And if you're here watching this video, you're probably interested and been doing some research on what it's like to live in Spain. I myself made the move from Texas to Spain in 2015, and I have not looked back. Honestly, it was the best decision that I made of my 30s, and I'm now 42 and still here. So I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and at the time I was living in Austin, Texas, when I moved to Madrid, Spain. It's my most favorite city in Europe, and I actually thought I would live and die in Madrid. But I surprised even myself when COVID hit. I actually moved to southern Spain to a city called Malaga, which is where I live now. So while I moved to Spain in 2015, my love affair with this country started well long ago, back in 2001. So I've been coming to Spain for over 20 years, and I don't think I'll ever be moving back to the US. Never say never, but Spain really feels like home. So if you're interested in moving to Spain, I think I know a thing or two about the amazing things about living here. And of course, since no place is perfect, I can also share about the not so fun things or fun parts about it. But hey, in my book, Spain is pretty close to perfect. So if you've been doing your research on Spain, you've probably noticed that you're not alone with the interest of making Spain your new home. Spain has so much to offer to so many people of so many ages, and Americans especially have been eyeballing Spain in the past few years, and many have decided to make Spain their new home for very good reason. So let's go over some of these reasons. I think we should start with the good news. Let's start with the pros of living here, and then we can make our way to the cons. All right, the first pro here is Spain's fantastic climate. One of the primary draws to this beautiful country is Spain's marvelous climate. It attracts visitors from all over the world. Spain's got over 3,000 miles of stunning coastlines. They've got mountains in the north. They even have 3 different types of climates here. It's not just all hot all the time, as some people think. I forgot one. There are actually 4 different types of climate here because the Canary Islands, which are part of Spain, off the coast of Morocco, has a subtropical climate there. So if you're a heat lover like myself, come down to the south of Spain or explore the East Coast. If you're more into mountains and cooler climates, then head up north and to the central regions. If you prefer to experience all 4 seasons, head to the center of the country or the north central areas. And if you prefer temperate and humid climates, then journey to the north regions of the country. There's something for everyone to enjoy at all times of the year. All right, so this second pro is actually one of my favorites here of living in Spain, and it's the affordable healthcare. Affordable private healthcare. There's also public healthcare here, which I'll touch on. But if you're coming from the US, then you know how difficult the healthcare system is. Not only how difficult it is, but how expensive it can be. Not the case here in Spain, and that's why I love it. So Spain's healthcare system is one of the best in the world. And as a US citizen, if you move here, you likely won't have access to the public health care. It depends on what visa you're on, but you will have to purchase private health insurance. And don't be scared because it is a fraction of the price of what it is in the US. So most policies here range from anywhere from 50 euros to 200 euros a month. Right now, the dollar and the euro are almost neck and neck. So that's $50 to $200 a month. And that is well below anything you're going to find in the US. And I would say it is amazing healthcare. I mean, you will have additional costs for dental and prescriptions, but that's the same in the US. But when it comes to prescriptions, even that is a fraction of what you're paying in the US. So yes, healthcare is one of the biggest pros of living here. All right, so number 3 is for the single people out there. So the third pro about living in Spain is there are tons of single people here. Single people of all ages. When I came here at 35, I was single. Now 42, I'm not so single. I met my Spaniard, but you can too. So here in Spain, it's a little different in the US because it's normal here for people to move out of their family home and get married much later in life. So I know that it already happens later in the US than it used to, but Spain is even later than the US. And a lot of people here opt for not even getting married, and they just simply cohabitate with one another. So because people are doing these things later in life here in comparison to the US, this has resulted in 2 few things. So the birth rate in Spain is a lot lower than the US. It's actually, I think, ranked the lowest in Europe. And there is a much lower marriage rate here. So the average marriage age for both men and women in Spain is about 33 years old, which is great if you're single, because everywhere in Spain, you're going to find plenty of single people of all ages. And when it comes to dating, it makes you feel like you're not so alone. There's a great dating pool here, and the social scene here in general, whether you want to date or not in Spain, is very lively and vibrant. All right, so the fourth pro of living in Spain is going to be one of your favorites, and it's the lower cost of living. So a large appeal for people moving to Spain from abroad is its affordability. The average monthly rent here, of course, it's going to range from city to city. But for example, in a city like Madrid, the capital, the largest city here, the average rent for a one bedroom in the city center is going to be around 900 euros. Definitely can be more. Probably won't be too much less. However, if you're looking to move to a smaller city and not a major city, you can probably even get a one bedroom for as low as 500 or 600 euros a month. So salaries here are also a lot lower. So if you're looking to get a job here, which is actually very difficult if you're American, so I wouldn't count on that. But if you have a way to work here, just know that salaries here are quite low. In Madrid, the average salary after tax is about 1,600 euros a month. So although salaries are lower, the cost of living is also lower. So things like groceries, transportation, entertainment, all that is going to be a lot lower than what you're used to in a major city in the US as well. All right, so number 5 is also a favorite of mine. The 5th reason why we love Spain and love living here is the easily accessible public transportation. So public transportation in Spain is so affordable, and it's just a great way to travel around the country. So Renfe is Spain's national railway network, and it offers high-speed train travel, mostly to the south and to the central and east side of the country. Trains are available to the north as well, but they may not be high speed, so it might just take you a little longer. Just know that the high-speed trains can be expensive. The slower trains are much more affordable, but either way, they're a great way to get around the country. And also buses are readily accessible and available in large and small towns, although in small towns, they may just run less frequently. And then, of course, let's get to the metro system, which is what the subway system here is called. The metro system in large cities in Spain, they're well connected and they're also super affordable. Madrid has an incredible subway network there. If you ever get a chance to try that out, you will love it, especially if you're coming from a city in the US where you need a car, because in most cities in Spain, you won't need one. And of course, if you're coming from the US, you're probably used to long distances. Well, if you live in the center of the country, let's say in Madrid, you can get to almost any corner of the country in Spain in less than 7 hours on a bus, and it shouldn't cost you any more than 60 euros. So lots of perks to the public transportation system here in Spain. All right, so the 6th pro about living in Spain is the large diversity between people and regions. And I'm talking about Spaniards here and Spain as a country. So many people don't realize just how big Spain is. While it's not as big as the United States, Texas is actually a little bit bigger than Spain. Spain is about, I would say, 75% the size of Texas. And Spain has 17 different autonomous regions. So you can think of those autonomous regions as 17 different states within the country. And all of those 17 different states have different cultural and historical aspects to offer, which makes it really interesting to live here. And there's even more than just Spanish that is spoken here. So some of the other languages that are spoken in Spain are Catalan, the Basque language, and Gallego. So if you come here, you'll get to experience all the different regions, traditions, and cultures that Spain has within. All right, the 7th pro about living in Spain is that there are so many expat groups that you can rely on to ask for help when needed. So I know a lot of people say, I'm not moving abroad to hang out with expats or with Americans, but I think it's actually great to have that access to people who understand where you're coming from, understand the journey you're on and the challenges that you're going to have moving to a new country as a foreigner. So I think it's really great that there are a lot of expat communities in Spain that you can tap into when you need help or when you're looking for resources that actually Spaniards may not know of because they haven't moved here from another country and they wouldn't know exactly where to point you to. And some of the best places to find these groups are, of course, on Facebook. Facebook groups are a godsend. So many expat Facebook groups in Spain. You can find those. And also meetup.com is a great place to meet other expats that are here as well. All right. So the 8th pro about living in Spain is that it is such a pet-friendly friendly country. If you're a pet lover, you are gonna love it here. So when I say pet lovers, I really mean dogs here, because pet lovers, you're gonna love how you can bring your furry friends or your little fur babies to the majority of places around Spain. Terraces, outdoor areas are really accommodating to dogs, as well as numerous restaurants and bars. You can even take your dog on public transportation as long as it's with below a certain size and in its carrier. But it's just great to be able to take dogs on buses, on the metro, and on the trains as well. All right, so the ninth pro here kind of goes along with that. While kids aren't dogs or pets, Spain is a very kid-friendly country. So children are welcome really just about anywhere at any time of the day or night. And it's not seen as a burden to anyone if you bring your kids to a bar late at night. It's not questionable behavior here. Kids are just a part of the family. And here in Spain, everyone enjoys life within this country. So you'll actually see many families with young children and even babies out past 11 at night, just enjoying the atmosphere together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing here in Spain, is that everybody, so from babies to even 90-year-olds, everyone is able to enjoy this country at any time of the day. All right, and we've made it to the 10th pro here before we get to the cons, but the 10th reason why people love living in Spain is that work-life balance. So this is probably the main reason why a lot of Americans are choosing to pick up their lives and move to Europe. It is for that work-life balance that just seems to be lacking in the US. This is also one of the biggest benefits to living here, aside from the weather and the healthcare and the many other things that I've mentioned. So work weeks here are scheduled for 40 hours being full-time, 20 hours part-time. So because Spain can have a long lunch hour, the siesta, where people don't actually sleep during that time, it can lead to a long work day. But unlike the US, work here does not consume your entire life. In fact, it actually leaves room for you to unplug, so you don't have to constantly be checking your emails and be on call 24 hours a day. And as you may have read, and what you'll come to find out if you do get to move here, is that when it comes to enjoying life to the fullest, Europeans, and I would say especially Spaniards, have it right. They got it right. We're doing something wrong in the US. Yeah, work-life balance really is one of the top reasons to move here. And I will say, and I will stress, Spanish people really know how to live well. All right, so now it's time to get to the cons, because the best parts of Spain are accompanied by the most frustrating parts. It's not always sunshine and rainbows over here, especially at the beginning when you first move over. So let's talk about some of those challenges that you may face when living here. All right, so let's get down to it. In no particular order, the first con that we have on our list for living in Spain are those tax obligations. So as an American, this is gonna happen to you wherever you go. But if you're in Spain here for more than 183 days, you become a tax resident, meaning that Americans have to pay their taxes in the US and are also liable to pay taxes in Spain. So what I just need to finish what I said earlier is that if you're an American, no matter where you live in the world, you are liable to pay your taxes in the US, even though you don't live there anymore. Womp womps. The US, I think, is one of 2 countries in the world that does this. But anyways, it is what it is. But as a Spanish tax resident, you're required to pay taxes on your worldwide income, which can put a huge strain on Americans living here, since US citizens are obligated to file taxes every year, even if you live outside the country, as I said. Taxes here in Spain are probably going to be higher than what you're going to be paying in the US. And it really all depends on how much you're earning on that worldwide income. The good news is that there's a double taxation treaty in place between the US and Spain that prevents full taxation on income from both countries. And also you can possibly qualify for the foreign income exclusion or foreign tax credit, depending on where your income is from, but you definitely need to talk to a tax expert to find out if you would qualify for any of those. So just be aware of your tax obligation. All right, the second con to living in Spain is going to be that language barrier. So languages are amazing and I highly encourage you to learn them. But one of the biggest factors and hurdles to your daily life in Spain is going to be Spanish. So less Spaniards speak conversational English than you might think. A lot of people think in Europe everyone speaks English, and that is not necessarily the case. So it's highly recommended to come here already with some level of Spanish to make simple things in life, especially at the the beginning easier. Simple things as going to the coffee shop, going to buy groceries, and just getting around. So of course, in larger cities in Spain where they're more accustomed to tourism, so like Barcelona, Madrid to an extent, Malaga, or anywhere on the coast of the Sol, and even in San Sebastian in the north, since they're accustomed to tourists coming in, people can assist you in English if needed, but they may not have a really high level of English. So definitely have some basic knowledge of Spanish, and it'll make your life 1,000 times easier. And of course, when you get here, put in the work to learn as much Spanish as you can. All right, so somewhat tied to the language barrier, number 3 here, one of the cons we have is the difficulty in making Spanish friends. And I think this gets harder the older that you get. And especially if you can't speak the language, it's gonna be so hard to communicate with people and even foster friendships here. That's not to say that it completely cuts you off from Spaniards and Spanish culture, because locals here are super friendly. So you can definitely start making some kind of friendships with the little Spanish that you know. Locals here love interacting with foreigners, and they're actually quite generous with their time when communicating with you. But just want to stress that language can be a barrier, and sometimes culture can be as well. And you have to think about it. People here and anywhere in the world, they already have their circle of friends. So it can be hard to get into a circle that is already formed and maybe has been formed over decades. So learning the language will help, and also tap into those expat groups that I mentioned before as one of the pros, because some of the times the easiest way to make friends are finding people who speak your own language or understand your culture, which is actually what some people get sucked into and just stay in that bubble. So just be careful not to get sucked into that bubble. Learn the language so that you can get integrated into Spanish culture as well. All right, so let's go into number 4. Number 4 here on our list of the cons of living in Spain is that saving money can be a little bit difficult. This is especially true, or mainly true, if you're working for a Spanish company, because if you're planning to work here and live on a Spanish income, it's going to be really hard to save money just because the incomes here are so low. So if you're making a US income or foreign income, you don't have to worry about this so much, but those Spanish salaries here are going to make it difficult to be able to live on your own, participate in those extracurricular activities, travel, save money for retirement, and the likes. All right, so number 5 here on our list of cons of living in Spain is that customer service. What customer service? You will quickly learn about this once you get here. So forget about the niceties that you might be used to in the US of people bending over backwards to help you, because I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that customer service is kind of non-existent here in Spain. So Spanish people in general, and as part of the language, are very direct, and that is also reflected, I think, in their customer service. So you'll notice this in the service industry, but also with government workers. They have their jobs here for life, so it's not likely or often that they're going to go above any expectations past their job description. And of course, here in the service industry, there's no obligation to tip wait staff. They don't work off tips like in the US. So people aren't exactly working for tips here. But if you really enjoy the service, feel free to tip. I always do when I have an outstanding customer service, because it is so rare. And I really just love to have a nice experience when I go out to eat. But if you quickly accept that customer service isn't always part of the service industry here, you won't have a problem adjusting, or at least you'll be able to adjust a little bit quicker. So number 6 on our list here is the con of bureaucracy. When you get here, or if you've moved here, you know how many hoops you have to jump through when it comes to this. So bureaucracy really can make or break your experience in Spain, but just don't let it. It is what it is, and we all have to go through it. I would just look at it as a rite of passage of moving to Spain. The Spanish bureaucracy is infamous for being slow, unreliable, and just utterly confusing. You can go in one day to an office and someone will tell you the paperwork that you need to bring to complete some transaction that you need to make. And then you come back with that paperwork only to find out that what you were told was not correct. So that is not uncommon, and it can be super frustrating, but like I said, it is what it is. You will get your paperwork done, but it may just take a little longer than you anticipated. The best advice I can give is just come prepared, do your research, tap into those expat groups, gain their advice, or get their advice from the people who have lived here already, and potentially just get an immigration lawyer to help you with some of the things that you may want to do on your own, but it'll just be so much smoother if you have a professional help you. All right, the 7th con here is for those who are looking to work in Spain. So number 7 is the difficulty of getting a Spanish work contract or work visa as a US citizen. So as I mentioned earlier, getting hired here in Spain as an American is just not easy at all. It is downright difficult, not impossible, well, but it's very, very difficult to get someone to hire you. So like all countries in the EU do, Spain first prioritizes its own citizens, followed by permanent residents, and then other residents in the European Union when they're looking for talent to fill roles that they have. So you will be at the end of the list as a US citizen looking for a job here. Some of the things that will help you is if you have extensive experience and also are very highly qualified and an in-demand role here. But even with those skills, you have to find a company who's going to be willing to sponsor you, and that can be very difficult and take a long time. I got really lucky, and after my first year of teaching English here, I was shooting resumes out left and right, trying to find a job in marketing. Everyone told me it was impossible, but I actually got my visa sponsored by a Spanish startup. So I got really lucky, but I would say that my case was really rare. So don't count on finding a job here. It's not impossible, but I would say really get here, network, and then see what happens. All right, we're almost to the end of our list here. So number 8 on the cons of living in Spain is the lack of variety. So I know I talked about in the pros, the variety within Spanish culture in the different regions here. So depending on where you live in Spain, and also depending where you're coming from, there can be a huge lack of variety, especially when it comes to international food products. So big cities like Madrid and Barcelona are gonna have more options for international cuisine than smaller cities, but there's still not really a concept of what I would say in the US of what we have, as you know, supermarkets that are kind of a one-stop shop with a variety of international foods. So you're gonna have to go to multiple different places to get all the products that you want if you're looking for a variety in your diet in terms of like international and different cultural types of foods. So additionally, spicy food is not a thing here in Spain. I don't know why some people think that Spanish people, maybe because they put them in the umbrella of Hispanic or Latin, but Spanish people do not take spice very well. So you're not going to find a lot of spicy condiments. Pack those and bring them with you, or you can go to the Latin, Hispanic, or Asian specialty supermarkets here to find those kind of products. I will add here too, this is a personal pet peeve of mine coming from Houston, Texas, the most diverse ethnically and culturally diverse city in the United States. I would say Spain does lack a lot of international diversity here, and that's something that I do miss, is going out and just seeing different groups of people hanging out with each other, hearing a variety of languages beyond European. And so I think Spain does lack a bit of that international variety as well. But of course, their history with immigration is much different than the US. And so they have just only been getting started in the past 30, 40 years with immigration. All right, so number 9 on our list of the cons of living in Spain is the direct nature of Spanish culture. You might love it, you might hate it, but it may take a little while to get used to in the beginning. So the directness in speech of Spanish people, at first it can be a little abrupt, a little overwhelming, and sometimes it can be viewed from an outsider as rude. But it shouldn't be taken this way because Spanish people are some of the friendliest and warmest people here in Europe. The good thing though with the direct nature of Spanish people is that they don't like to beat around the bush. They say what they're thinking, they say what they feel, and so they're not really into the niceties and pleasantries that we use a lot in American culture, and that can be a little bit deceiving. So you really know where you stand when it comes to Spanish people. All right, and the 10th con of living in Spain is being self-employed. So being self-employed here in Spain, or being autónomo as it's called, is a difficult and expensive process. I would say that Spain is not really very freelance or self-employed friendly, and there are so many upfront costs that you have to pay as an autónomo, a freelancer. Monthly fees can get up to 300 euros a month, and freelancers receive minimum amounts for their pension plans. Some of the things to look out for if you do become a freelancer is that you have to declare your income every 3 months, and you have to pay 20% of your income as an advance. So Spain's IVA or VAT, or consumption, sales and goods tax, is set at 21%, and it must also be paid in January regardless of your income amount. So it's kind of a bummer and expensive to be a freelancer here in Spain. Spain is no exception to the rule, so don't let the cons get you down. It's going to be difficult no matter where you move into the world. There's going to be countless ups and downs on your journey of moving abroad. So don't let it intimidate you. With the proper preparation, many of these cons will just be so much less of a burden. when you know what you need to do. And I would say the benefits of living in Spain far outweigh the cons, especially if you remain open-minded, have a relaxed attitude, and are willing to learn. If you've been dreaming about making Spain your home and making the Spanish dream a reality, I highly recommend checking out my digital book, I'm Out of Here, An American's Ultimate Visa Guide to Living in Europe, where I outline the 17 easiest countries to move to in Europe, including Spain. And I include over 50 viable visa options. 6 of those are for Spain. So check it out. I'm Out of Here, and let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any future Move Abroad content. Thank you so much for watching.